So I feel like here in Finland, it's more still like different countries like Turku, Tampere, Helsinki are much more connected when it comes to the ecosystem and have much more cooperation. So in Germany, you really have to kind of focus or think a bit like in which kind of ecosystem would you actually go first or start developing a business.
All right. What is your target area for Finnish startups? Like, where do you take them when they come to you and say, like, hey, I want to go into German market? Which region or?
I mean, well, that can't be answered like this. Of course, we always need to kind of think about what startup is it. So, like, how we overall do it, like, we first think about, like, what is your market there, like, and analyze, like, really, like, what's the best place to be for the startup. So I can't say that Berlin is the place to be for all startups from Finland, even though some people might think that if we talk about startups in Germany, we talk only about Berlin. But we also really think about other, like, areas. And for example, if you think about the South, Bavaria and Baden-Württemberg, they are pretty strong if you think about healthcare, manufacturing, with a lot of big corporates. So that might also be a good place to start for a startup on that field.
Does it actually work this way that a startup can just send you an email and say, hey, I'm a Finnish startup, I want to grow out and I want to go to Germany?
Yeah, exactly. That's how it would all start. And we have different kind of services we can offer with different kind of activities. We have also a German-Finnish member network that a startup can join, where we get a lot of networking events here in Finland and also a lot of peer support. So, of course, best way would be to meet and reach out, and then let's see how to get further from there.
Do you also somehow search for the coming startups? Or are you just waiting for them to reach out to you?
Well, I think we are pretty active in the startup ecosystem in that sense. So I think this year I have been, at least in Finland, to Polar Bear in Oulu. I have been Shift, Arctic 15, now Stream, Slush, of course, and also the other way around. Like, I have been just coming from Munich from an 8 or 9 day tour trip where we have been visiting Bits and Pretzels, where actually, I don't know if you know, but Barack Obama was speaking there. It's like 5,000 people. So pretty huge founder festival in the south of Germany.
All right, impressive. And now you're in Finland in Stream, which is a cozy event. Someone told me today that it feels a bit like a family atmosphere.
That's true. Like, how many people actually do you think are planned to be there today?
I think our best estimation was around up to 500, but I should double check with the organizers.
Okay, that's cool. That's really cool.
What are your expectations for the rest of the day at Stream then?
Actually, I will still have a couple of meetings, and then unfortunately I have to leave a bit earlier since I have to catch up with some work. But so not being able to join the after party this year, but definitely on my list for the next year.
At least it's good to hear that definitely German-Finnish Chamber of Commerce is coming to Stream next year.
Yeah, definitely. That's my plan, of course. Like, we try to connect with the startups, and I think the best way to connect with startups is to be where the startups are. So at the right festivals, at the right events in Finland, and that's kind of how we make the first connections and try to be part of the ecosystem.
Is your actual target audience startups, specifically startups, or more traditional businesses?
So if you talk about the German-Finnish Chamber of Commerce, of course, it's more like traditionally it has been the small and medium-sized companies that want to go and expand. But if you talk about my personal activities and my job, my role is more about startups and like innovative companies, because we know that as a startup you might even need support much earlier than a traditional small and medium-sized company, from thinking about the stage and the phase in which the company is. So I'm personally working more or less only with startups.
Okay, how do you define a startup then?
That's a difficult question, I guess, and a lot of discussions around that you can look up in the internet. I personally think a startup is a company that has the potential and also is willing to grow more than an average company. And in my opinion, there's also some relation to technology or innovation included in the startup for doing this.
Okay. That sounds like a decent explanation for me. Right. Thank you very much for this interview, David. I wish you productive meetings during the rest of your day and, of course, a safe trip back home.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Actually, I should be already slowly preparing for the Tribecast, which is the official side event of Stream Startup Festival and the birthday party of P47 co-working space. But I want to do one more interview because I still haven't had anyone who would be marked in stream schedule as a keynote speaker. So I just opened the door and told a person, hey, you owe me an interview. And he still wants to talk to me afterwards, which I appreciate very much. Let's just start with the very beginning. Hello, and please tell our listeners a few things about yourself.
Well, hello, my name is Yoad Mick. And yes, I'm a keynote speaker here in Stream Festival. My keynote was actually about how being human-centric can actually develop and benefit your business. And my background is actually from many years in advertising and many years in marketing in Israel, and actually grew up in the States as well. Mm-hmm. Moved to Finland about a year and a half ago. And ever since I've been actually opened a new company. It's called the North Mix. Mm-hmm. Co-founded that. And actually helping companies move from being product-centric to being human-centric. And actually including on top of that branding efforts and actually creating marketing efforts on top of that. So it's actually a continuous process that you can't just create one without creating the other. So there's a lot of companies in the Finnish ecosystem are very, very product driven, which is actually an excellent point because they make really good products. But from that point on, how do you actually communicate this to the world? And how do you communicate this not only to the world, but to the different users in the world? And how do you take your target audience and actually really understand their needs and then take that back to the product and understand that if you're servicing those needs. So all this journey that comes out to the way that you retention, the way you create the customer experience, and the way you create the customer journey all originates from a human-centric approach, which is actually the way of thinking about the business.
So again, we come to the idea that business is human to human.
Yes, business is human to human, and there's always that joke that, we're not selling to aliens. Yeah, we're not, but the fact that you're not selling to aliens does not make your product human-centric. The fact that humans are end users and they actually use it, or people are end users, that still means that you develop something and then you just bring it to the people and you expect them sort of to use it. Because if you developed a good product, then clearly they should see the value in that product and you should use it because you think it's good for them. But today's world doesn't work that way anymore. And the challenges of being product-centric are humongous and they're rising all the time. If it's competition, if it's new tech, if it's new trends, if it's very opinionated customers that want tailored solutions and they want more options and they want to be part of the process as well. And businesses don't really know how to take that and how to attack that in the product sense, in the social media sense, and so on. So this is always something that product-centric companies say, okay, marketing guys will figure it out somehow. Mm-hmm. But then when you go back to those marketing guys, they actually have to tell a certain story. And that story still remains a story unless it could follow a journey with the customers all the way back to the product. And the customers hear the story, and they might believe this on a marketing and advertising sense, and then they go back to the product, and then they think, is this product really what it was promised to be? Does it really fill my needs? And when they come to that point where it doesn't, then they stay with the product as long as it's comfortable. And when the next one comes along, or a little better one, or a better offer, or slightly better function, then they switch over. There's no loyalty being done there because there's no trust being built. So a lot of times I talk to companies about human-centric approaches and then how empathy has to do with it. And of course, I think empathy is some psychological mumbo-jumbo that has nothing to do with actual numbers, but it has everything to do with business because you are selling to people and people are emotionally driven. Even if they don't like to admit it, they are emotionally driven, and emotion drives logic. So according to that logic, it would be...
According to that, logic is non-existent.
So it's really trying to look at the needs of the people or the target audience that you actually want. And once you understand those needs, you really understand those needs, not try to give a quick solution to everything that they say, but really just ask questions that are not about what solutions you want, but what are your needs, what are your fears, what are your wants, what are your obstacles, what are your aspirations, what are your motives, and besides the product itself, I mean, I can clue you into a certain area that I'm interested in. And from that, actually, that I can use to derive that data. It's just like any data that you use to measure KPIs. That data is then accumulated, and from that, I can actually derive my roadmap, I can derive my pivot, I can derive my marketing and everything because I know what their need is and then how do I actually service those needs and how that product really answers those needs. And once you do that, and once the people feel that they really are understood, this happens also on a personal level and on a business level, then they will actually be there by your side and come to you rather than you coming to them, which is actually human-centric approach in a nutshell. It's how do you not bring the product to the customers, but rather bring the customers along that journey from them to you, not dragging them to you, but walking alongside them, putting them into the process. They're no longer end users. They are now part of the creative process of making your product a reality because it answers their needs.
All right. I got your wisdom. Now let's talk a bit about your feelings on Stream Startup Festival. You were holding a workshop. How did it go?
Well, the workshop was actually very, really interesting. It was an hour-long workshop where we started establishing actually what's a human-centric approach. And then actually one of the things that we did, which I was really giving credit to the people that took part in the workshop, they were really excited about this and they really put everything into it. And it's not easy because I asked them to leave the humans aside, leave the people aside, and try to do a human-centric approach on animals and how we take all these animals, which the only reason we took that is because you can't relate to experiences of an animal, but you can relate to experiences of a human, or so you think. So when I detach myself from my prejudice, then I can really start to listen and look at the different aspects of that animal, understands, and really study it without judging what the needs, fears, wants, and everything. And once you understand that, from there we practice actually how you take that and turn it into a product. How do you derive a product from there? As radical as it can be. I mean, they said the same thing about Henry Ford and the car, right? Radical idea. How the hell do you do that? I mean, how do you take the horse and carriage and dump it out? And he said this. He said, if I would have asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses because people are not visionaries. But people know exactly what they need and how they feel because that's subjective. And they can talk about themselves all day long. And when you ask them that simple question, why do you feel that way? Or why do you need that? Why? They start digging within themselves and they give you really great data, which is just like any data that you collect, as we said. And from that, actually, you understand how far and how radical the idea that you do can be pitched to them or can be relayed to them. Because if they trust that you answer their needs, now they'll look at your product in new eyes, in eyes that say, okay, I'm willing to walk with you. I'm willing to look this and test this to see if this can answer what I need. And you see this in the iPhone, you see this in the car, and many, many other new and breakthrough products that came to the market. And you see this also in products that are similar or in the same area. As long as they connect to needs and people feel that they understand them better, they will remain with the product for longer.
As far as I can understand, that was quite an intense workshop, and I hope that people brought something out of it, because definitely they had a huge amount of new things to experiment with, and it was thought-provoking for them. What are your general feelings about Stream Festival? I guess it's your first stream.
Yes, it's my first stream. Last year I heard people that were here. They were very excited by it. And this is actually, I was excited when Alexandra approached me and said that if I would be speaking at this one. It's an amazing initiative. And I think if you follow what Slush has been doing, this is actually, could be anything like exactly the same thing that Slush is. So with more awareness to this stream festival, I think it could grow big. And I think Finland can be a hub for this in the Nordics especially. And who knows, maybe even more.
All right, and now I cannot but ask this question. In your experience, what's the main difference between Finnish and Israel ecosystem? Well,
there are many differences between the Israeli and the Finnish startup system, and a lot of similarities as well. There's a great drive here to want to innovate new things, and there's a lot of government support for this, which is something that isn't happening all that much in Israel, but still it's a startup ecosystem because people that are really hungry and failure is not an option. Now, it doesn't mean that startups don't fail. They fail a lot, but they keep coming back and doing more and working really fast. So I think the pace is something that's really differentiating. In Israel, the pace is very, very high. Work-life balance is non-existent. Whether here it's more existent. Not sure that in Israel we got it right, but because I think people don't live. But I do think that the drive is a little stronger. And the second thing is actually I think that Israeli startups immediately seek funding and markets outside of Israel. They never stay in Israel, rarely do. And I think Finnish startups tend to stay, first of all, in Finland where they feel safe, and only that And after they done that, they sort of venture out. So I see that a lot in the startups that I come across and companies too. This is actually why many companies that I deal with, actually, how do I take them globally, and how do we understand that the way that a certain company behaves in Finland does not mean that you can behave that way